Revenge is a dish best served soiled part 2. At this point we were in the new year and I suspected her of cheating. She had become downright hostile towards me. I started trying to up my workload around the house but nothing was good enough. I ended up constantly being belittled and walking on eggshells, couldn't do right for wrong and was starting to become a humorless shell of my witty former self. One night I got a hold of her phone and looked through it, nothing, was clean as a whistle. Wasn't even any messages from her friends or her mother, which I found weird. Was then that my friend told me that if we were on the same plan then I could check on the carrier's website and see all the activity from her phone. We were on the same plan, and I paid for her phone. That night I logged into my BT account, navigated to mobile, then her number started to sift through and there it was, thousands of texts and calls to this one specific number. It had started 6 months previous, and it had dates, times and how long the calls were. She'd be speaking to and texting this person for hours and hours while I was at work, deleting everything before I got home, then going cold turkey when I got back. I googled the number and up came a local garage, one where she had got her car fixed previously. I remembered it taking a while for it to get fixed and her complaining about it a lot. The whole thing was a long drawn out affair, in more ways than one apparently. At this point I was ice cold. I already had got it into my head she was having an affair, so getting it confirmed was more of a relief than anything else. I wanted to catch her in the act, rather than have her attempt to gaslight me and squirm out of the circumstantial, so I found out everything I could about this guy. I found out where he lived, that he had a young wife and child, found out what car he drove, even walked in asking about prices so I could look this guy in the eye and get a measure of him. His name was Carl with a K. I knew the affair was physical for lots of reasons, but the fact that their phone calls and texts stopped dead from 1 to 2 each day said to me that was the time they were meeting up. I came up with all sorts of silly plans, to loan my friend's car and sit at the end of the street, then wait till she drove out, then follow her to the place she was meeting this guy and jump out the car while they were in the act like surprise mother ducker. There were too many variables in that though, and I'm no private detective. One day I decided to drive by his garage about 1:30 and her car was just sitting there, and the place was locked up, so mystery solved. I was at this point at the end of my tether, and ready to just tell her that I knew everything and get the duck out my house, when she asked if it would be okay to go away to a spa place for the weekend, alone. She said she was depressed with everything with her back being so much worse, that this place would be great to help with that with all the things she could do. That she could come back refreshed and like a new person. She was right about that, 'cause I didn't know who the duck this was standing in front of me anymore. Obviously she wasn't going there alone, if she was even going there at all. This would be a dirty weekend away with this guy. I said fine, now I had a new plan, and this would be the last ducking thing I'd do for her. If you're thinking this is all too much of a kerfuffle, then you're right obviously, but my position is I wanted revenge, and I wanted to get her back with some style. I didn't just want to have her cry it and gaslight me for days, then leave on her terms, with me the bad guy. I would be the bad guy but it would be my terms she'd be leaving on alright. The Friday came and the spa was 100 or so miles down the road so she decided to get a train. I jokingly asked her if she couldn't find something more local, umming and ohing followed till I told her I was only kidding. I got off work a couple of hours early and took her into the train station. Despite her protests she would get a taxi, as I wanted to see her off. We drive in and as I'm looking for a place to park you wouldn't guess whose car I spot? That's right, Carl with a K. I think duck at him gonna have some fun and make her squirm so I park up directly next to him. They're right next to each other door to door and she immediately becomes uneasy, not knowing where to look. In pretending to look for something trying to draw out the moment and the atmosphere is razor sharp at that point. What happened next genuinely caused me to do something out with my plan. She started to silently giggle. You know when you go to church or someone dies or you go to church 'cause someone dies and something funny pops into your head. And it becomes mental tears you're desperately trying to think of something else and stop yourself from laughing maniacally? Well she's desperately trying not to laugh. In pretending not to notice, she's tapping her hand on her trouser leg and from the corner of my eye I can see him, with his head on the ducking steering wheel. She actually lets out a laugh, then quickly disguises it as a cough and starts clearing her throat. I start doing the whole tapping of back thing and am just thinking to myself, I can't wait to get you back. See, we all go through life being the BTT of the joke at least once, whether it be passive-aggressive work colleagues or when you get up and try and do a talk at school with a face redder than the devil himself. But you never expect that it from people who are supposed to have your back, even if you are conspiring against them at that point. I helped her into the train station with her things, made sure she had her bearings, said goodbye and walked away. By the time I got out, Carl with a K's car was nowhere to be seen, so I went back home, composed myself and carried out my plan. My plan was simple but effective. I started by having a locksmith come out to change the locks. I then proceeded to pack all of her clothes and belongings into bin bags and put it round the side of the house. On Friday night, with the noise of her laughing at me ringing in my ears, I'd done something I never imagined I could do. I took Mitza's litter tray, walked round the side of the house with it, opened the bin bag with Sarah's belongings in it and threw it in, gave the bag a good shake, then tied it up again. The way I seen it at the time was that it's cause and effect in action. She caused me to effectively put Cat Acid in with her things. If you're thinking him in a shoal, then you're probably right. He'll never win any awards for being nicest neighbor on the block. If I don't like you within 5 minutes of meeting you, I probably never will, and the only time it'd ever take out your trash is if you are the trash. If you do break through those barriers, though, I think I am a loyal, caring person. I didn't do anything to deserve being cheated on, except maybe putting cat litter in with her things, but that was after the fact. I spent the Saturday in a mire of depression, answering her texts with the only energy I could muster, which wasn't a lot. I complained of a severe headache from a hangover I never had, and the text dwindled. The reality of what was transpiring hit home, and for the first time since before New Year I took stock of my life, sitting in my swivel armchair with Mitzi in tow like a ducking Bond villain. Sunday came and I was ready to execute the final part of my plan. Firstly, I drove to Carl with a K's house and put a letter through his door. It was addressed to his wife and basically said in block capitals, "Important Carl," with a K's wife's name. Open immediately. Inside it was a letter outlining how her husband was having an affair with my girlfriend, copies of her phone calls and text log, as well as other information like that they were away together this weekend. I put it through the door, rang the doorbell and walked away. Got in my car and drove for a minute, then parked up again, then I phoned Sarah. I genuinely can't remember a lot of what I said to her, but it was something along the lines of me asking how everything was going. She started to gush about how much she enjoyed herself, that she feels like a new woman and that she could maybe see herself doing it 2 or 3 times a year, to blow off the cobwebs, certainly to blow something. At this point I blurt out, "How's Carl?" Her yapping stops dead, silence fills the air until she finally says, "Who's Carl?" I reply, "Carl, with a K." I then proceeded to tell her that I knew everything, that Ed changed the locks and all her stuff was round the side of the house. Instead of being apologetic, she goes on a thunderous diatribe, blaming me for everything, basically stabbing me in the back while complaining that my backbone was blunting her blade. At the end I told her how her stuff smelled of Mitza's poo and hung up. I blocked her number and didn't see hide nor hair of her until the Wednesday. When I came back from work, she was sitting on the doorstep, all the bags had been moved. I ignored her, walked round the back, let myself in the back door and locked it behind me. Haven't spoken to her since, although she's made her attempts, including a letter. In regards to Carl with a K, I don't know what happened between him and his wife. I do know that he said it wasn't personal to a friend of mine. That made me angry. Like, is that supposed to make it better? Someone saying something isn't personal just means it isn't personal to them. It was to me. If someone smashes through your front room in a 4x4 obliterating everyone you've ever loved, is it easier to get over if they didn't personally mean it? Is it easier to pick up the pieces and put them back together again? No. I heard that COVID hasn't been kind to his business though, but you won't catch me shedding no tears for that, unless it's tears of laughter, that is.